An AI took over my brain and it's bad at managing it. So I decided to take control back because with my humble projections, I won't be able to formulate a sentence by the age of 25. Today we're gonna dive a bit deeper into what depressing impact AI has on our brains and how you can take control back and stop being a slave to another app on your phone, which we have a bunch of already. There is an actual name for this. In 2011 study in the journal Science by Sparrow, Liu and Wagner, they found that when people expect they'll be able to look something up again, they remember it way less of it and remember instead where to go find it, right? They call it the Google effect. And I think the exact same thing is happening to me and the majority of people using AI right now. Except it's not just specific facts anymore you forget. It's entire sentences sometimes and just common knowledge a 5-year-old would know. So I'm not a native speaker, so this is already harder for me than it is for most people, right? But if I never cross that laziness barrier, I don't think I'll ever actually develop the ability to elaborate on an idea on my own. And I certainly don't mean reaching some sophisticated philosophy professor level of English. I just mean being able to simply express myself to the full extent, you know, sketch an idea on the paper and actually turn it into something worth reading or listening to. Which also matters for socializing and social life in general, not just cutting AI out of how I think. And the barrier that needs crossing isn't really about writing messy sentences or talking with bad grammar, which is probably what I do right now, but instead it's going through the acceptance stage in front of your viewers, you know, your family, your friends, where your language visibly stagnates after a long stretch of using AI. Because now it's actually you talking, unpolished, imperfect, but it is your sentences and not AI just, you know, drafting the idea for you. And that's genuinely what I'm doing right now. I don't feel ashamed for writing like a 5-year-old sometimes, because that's just the stage I have to go through. I read out loud, what else? I write down every new word, I build sentences with them and, you know, slowly but surely fold them into how I actually talk. Another way how I do this is through these videos. And it's not just writing either. I've noticed it hit my ability to take even the dumbest, most half-formed ideas and just, you know, sit with it until it turns into something solid. Which is basically what creativity is, right? To take something formless and give it a part of your soul, which we all now lose because of AI, or it just takes part of it as a payment. And that creative void isn't really a void if you think about it. It is more like being numb, full of incomplete thoughts and feelings. So no matter how hard you try, you just can't quite put the thought or the idea together. And it's showing up in conversations too. And I think that's actually where it probably has the most impact on my life. I lost the ability to go deeper. Because what AI does basically is that it lets you skip that stage entirely, right? And most of my interactions with people sank down to this, you know, basic, normal, informal, day-to-day level, which, you know, isn't exactly great for building anything deeper. And it also goes way deeper than just, you know, big creative work that I'm doing on a constant basis. Because I've noticed that sometimes I'll ask it about basic school level knowledge, or, you know, something small as writing a happy birthday message with my personality in it, based on everything you know about me, right? And how I communicate. Which is kind of funny to even say out loud right now. And that's where I started thinking about it in a bigger way, right? With industrial development, a man with a shovel could become, you know, a tractor driver and still, you know, kind of keep his cognitive side of the job intact, even if his, you know, arm got weaker from not shoveling anymore. But because he still needs to remember how to use all the buttons, all the levers, etc. But now we're not just moving less physically, we're also letting our own thinking deteriorate. And that eats into our understanding of who we are, who we actually are, which is our identity. And so happens that identity is the main pillar behind having, any kind of presence in social life. And if you're, for example, a YouTuber like me, in the media field, it applies to it as well. Since the whole idea behind personal brand is giving value to people through self-expression, basically, which is a skill that AI gradually takes away from you. And that brings me to what I think is the real line here. I think AI generally replaces the generative struggle of things, right? The actual use of your imaginative muscle, and that's probably where the real line is. Whatever that muscle gets purposely switched off by a structural choice. The point where you stop being a person with ideas and kind of start being a prompter for your AI. The funny thing is that I don't have a fully worked out opinion on this. And even though I could just ask AI, I'm not going to. I would rather spend, a week or even a month reading the most boring paper and do my own research. Because going through struggle is how you become great. But it's not just a personal habit, The tools themselves are built to pull you that way. Anthropic, for example, leans into organic design choices, which makes the product feel like, a warm friend who's always there for you. And other companies do some version of the same thing. I'm less sure about the rest, but I think the real business model, the architecture, the marketing side of things, all of it pushes you toward outsourcing entire thinking without a second thought. The tools themselves, they tend to lean on instant gratification, almost always fully generating a detailed answer right away, instead of giving you a slightest chance to, sit with the question. And they hide the messy in-between steps that led to the answer, which, cuts any chance to actually learn from it or step in, right? The same pattern with autocomplete, smart replies, auto summaries in Gmail or Outlook, all of the stuff you use constantly without noticing. And there's this whole myth of marketing AI as a co-pilot, like it's just a helpful, friendly assistant of yours. What it's actually doing is bit by bit taking controls while you turn into a passengers in your own life instead of the pilot. Kind of ironic that some companies just call it a co-pilot outright, like Microsoft did. It's almost like they're, telling you exactly what it does for you. And maybe the real danger isn't that AI becomes intelligent enough to replace us, right? Maybe it's that we become, as humans, more comfortable enough to let it, How much of our thinking are we willing to give away before we notice that we've stopped doing it ourselves? That's the real question worth thinking about. Subscribe if this hit closer than you would like. As always, it was Michael on the line. Subscribe if you would like more content like this, and see you soon.